Welcome back, everyone. Let's go ahead and take a look at the PlayStation 4 Pro and see how this specific console holds up in 2022. Now, what I will definitely tell you is the PlayStation 4 genre in general is still completely worth it in 2022, and I will definitely tell you, even though the PlayStation 5s are out and they're going to be way better and all this other stuff, I think that the PlayStation genre right now is at a very, very strong situation. And I mentioned this in 2020 when I was getting the PlayStation 5s and I was kind of comparing them and reviewing them, and I was saying, even though the PlayStation 5 consoles are super different and they have a lot more power and they're way better and all this other stuff, don't forget that the PlayStation 4 consoles in general, the original Slim and the Pro, are still going to stick around for a while. And the difference between a PlayStation 3 and a PlayStation 4, I think there were more differences there than a PlayStation 4 and a PlayStation 5. And because everything has now gone to more streaming and online purchases and downloads, I just have a feeling that the PlayStation 4s, because that whole entire genre kind of like sold very well, and because of the supply chain issues we got with, COVID and everything for the PlayStation and Xbox, the new Xboxes, I kind of had a feeling this is going to be one of those genres and generations that when a developer makes a game for the PlayStation 5, they're probably going to end up making it for the PlayStation 4 as well, just because so many people are going to still be owning and playing PlayStation, games on their PlayStation 4s, and I think that's still super relevant. We haven't really seen too many launch titles for the next generation of consoles that are specifically for those consoles. Now there's a few, and there's maybe a lot now in 2022, but it took kind of a long time for that to kind of happen, and I don't even think it's still fully overlapped. A lot of games are still coming out for the PlayStation 4, and with the PlayStation 4 Pro, these things you can buy in the used market. You can probably not buy in the brand new market anymore, but you can buy them in the used market relatively easily. So with that being said, this specific console, it's not even really that old. I mean, it came out in 2016 and it was retailing for $399. Now, PlayStation, Sony, they did a lot of different things with this specific console at that time. They, for one, from the Slim model, they actually went ahead and added an extra little, slab of the, top little layer on top of this PlayStation. And that's how you can kind of relatively easily tell which one's a Pro and which one's a Slim. This is a pretty big console, but with that bigness, it comes with some extra power for sure. Now, with the PlayStation 4 Pro, compared to the original PlayStation 4, you were getting relatively the same CPU within it. So again, when you're getting that type of thing, I mean, you're definitely getting, relatively the same type of, performance in that standpoint. It was $100 more than the original PlayStation 4 that came out, 3 years before that. You were getting a way better GPU within it. So that was a really big difference there. You were getting the same system memory, the same type of RAM between them, but you were getting twice the amount of base storage if you were getting the base PlayStation 4. So the PlayStation 4 Pro had that 1TB model, and the PlayStation 4 had that 500GB model, but it also had that other model on top of it as well. Now, looking around the PlayStation 4 Pro, this is still a very good looking console. This is not a console that looks ugly, it doesn't look outdated, and as I mentioned before, even though the PlayStation 5s look so much better and they look amazing and everything like that, I don't think that the PlayStation 4 Pro is an outdated console. For a majority of the games that you're going to be playing on something like the PlayStation, good genre of games, if you're going to the PlayStation 4 and downloading them, this is still one of my favorite consoles to recommend to people just because it's still such a solid device in so many different ways. Now, on top of that, another cool thing about the PlayStation 4 Pro was the power within it. We could go and output our, specific console, output to 4K resolution. On the PlayStation 4, I think there were some ways we can upscale, different type of games up, but for native 4K resolution to output, we had that capability on the PlayStation 4 Pro. And on top of that, it was a bigger console, and I'm sure the cooling system within this console too was a little bit better for the most part. I think I heard some things that the fans were a little bit better and all that stuff. Again, not 100% too sure, but again, this is another really cool thing, and we had native 4K on this console, which was another really cool thing about this thing as well. Now, on top of that, we did have things like FPS boost, which was locked, so this console could produce smoother locked frame rates according to the website, and the PlayStation 4 Pro could produce faster targeted frame rates as well. So theoretically, you were probably getting just an overall better experience on something like the PlayStation 4 Pro than really any other PlayStation console before that, which was really awesome. And because this thing didn't have a crazy big difference from its other generations, and it's not like it removed the disc slot or anything, you still had a really solid performing console in that standpoint as well, which was really cool. Now on the front, we had that USB, A port on the front, which was really cool. Now on the back, we had that AC adapter, we had an HDMI port, we we had another USB-A port, and then we had an Ethernet port as well. Now, there were different dongles and everything you could buy out there too, so you can go ahead and, attach that dongle there and you can get more ports and everything, which is still really cool. With a bigger console like this, you probably know that, you're going to be using this thing for a ton of different gaming. And this specific console had a bunch of capability for sure. Now I think there's some mods out there for this specific console too, but just the native games that you can play on this thing. I mean, not only did you have all those PlayStation 4 games that have already came out, but you can upscale them and play them, I think, in 1440p natively, and then 4K if the game supported it, which was really cool. On top of that, with this type of console, there were already a lot of games that were kind of grandfathered in from previous consoles. Although there wasn't like native backwards compatibility, there were still a lot of games that were being ported over on the PlayStation Store that you can play. But you have to remember, in 2016, even from like 2010 onwards, a lot of the games that were coming out weren't necessarily the games that you would like go to the store and buy and then bring it back. There were still a lot of those games out, but we have transitioned completely to online, free to play type of games. So as long as you have some type of PlayStation subscription or some type of Xbox subscription, you don't even need those anymore, at least as far as I know. But you could play certain games, like Fortnite. That was a really big popular game. Games like Apex Legends and so many different games across the board that are technically free to kind of download and play. You don't really need to even buy certain games anymore, and that's why I still think consoles like the PlayStation 4 Pro and consoles like the PlayStation 5, looking 10-15 years in the future, are still going to be super relevant, mostly because these developers of these games, as long as Sony doesn't, botch the way they approach these older consoles, they don't like stop supporting certain consoles in the future, as long as you have the capability of, going online and playing those games and downloading those games, these consoles can practically live forever. And these developers want these consoles to live forever. It's up to Sony mostly because they want to sell the latest hardware and they want people to, pay more money for the newest consoles and buy those games that are more expensive. But if people are downloading a bunch of these free games, Sony's not going to make any money at the most part. But with something like the PlayStation 4 Pro in particular, I think this is still a very good console for sure. I think it has still a future ahead of it. It's approaching 6 years old this year, and as I mentioned before, this is not an old console. Is it an older console? Yeah, you can probably give it that. It's probably an older console for sure, but this is a console that I would probably recommend most people to go ahead and buy. If you keep it, I would still recommend keeping it out. I think you can easily go the rest of this year without any hiccups. If there's any specific particular feature that you like about the PlayStation 5s, then I would recommend kind of keeping your eye open in the brand new market and purchasing one when you get a chance. But it's been almost 2 years since the PlayStation 5s came out, and I just still see so many issues with people getting their hands on it, and I just don't see this stopping anytime soon with the supply chain constraints that happened all last year, and now we're approaching this year and things seem to be getting a little bit better. I just think that if you are planning on keeping your PlayStation 4, and if you're wanting to keep a PlayStation 5 or get a PlayStation 5, by all means feel free to go purchase a PlayStation 5. I think it's a great idea, but I don't think it's as big of a rush as you may, make it think like in your head. The PlayStation 4 Pro is still a very good console. It still has a long future ahead of it, and I don't think this console is going anywhere anytime soon. But as I mentioned, with something like the PlayStation 5, great console, but I would recommend buying it in the brand new market for as cheap as you can buy it, rather than spending, more money overpriced on something like a PlayStation 5, when the PlayStation 4 Pro is still a very good console in my opinion. So that kind of covers it up. If you have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.